All right, what is going on, guys? It's Raul here. We're back. We're doing another disc review. We got Eagle's final Discmania disc. It's the Cloudbreaker, the Creator Series, so it's the same mold as the Horizon Cloudbreaker and the original Creator Series Cloudbreaker. So I'm gonna be doing a review of this one and kind of a, is it gonna fit in the bag? Is it gonna fit in my bag? Does it have a slot? I'm thinking that it's going to, because I need kind of a flippy driver, and I think that's what this is gonna be, with a little bit of stability at the end is what I'm hoping for. So I'm gonna compare this with the Horizon Cloudbreaker and the original Creator Series S line. This and this. This one's brand new. It'll be my first throws with it, so it'll probably be pretty stable. This one I've thrown like 3 times, and this one I've thrown a handful of times, but not too many times. So it's still pretty fresh, and it flies pretty true to how it did when I first got it. To start it off, we're just gonna throw it in order. So we're gonna start off with the Special Blend S-Line Creator Series. So it's all the same mold, just different plastics, but they fly pretty differently. This one, I've noticed, actually feels a little bit different in hand. The rim is a lot lower profile. The other two have a little bit more of a concave to make it, I think, a little more like, have a little more late stability. And then this one on top is very low profile, slight dome, but it kind of just turns and holds the turn a little bit more than the others. But we're gonna compare them directly today in the video. Right now, the wind's down a little bit, but we have a little bit of head right to left wind. So just keep that in mind. I think once they turn over, it's gonna be hard for them to fight out, but let's see how it goes. Just gonna throw it out there on a little bit of Hyzer. Gosh, that thing's flippy. So I threw it straight out there, a little bit of Hyzer, some good height, flipped up, turned over, got all the way over, started to fade out, and actually hit that tree on the right. Now we're gonna throw this guy. I think this will not flip over at all, but let's see. It's a freshie, so you never know. Yeah, so I threw that thing on a really good line, slight Hyzer, straight, flipped up barely. I think I even threw it a little bit flatter, but it flipped up barely and then just faded out left the whole time. Really, really good flight on that thing. That might straight up go in the bag. It wasn't in the bag before, but I think it might. Now we're gonna go with this one, see how it is. I'm hoping it's somewhere in between those two, because I want something flippy, but that first one's just so flippy, it almost just burns over. All right, so I kind of released that one a little bit left. It flipped up and started to turn a little bit, but I didn't get the same power on it as I did the other two. So it does seem like it has a little bit more stability than that first one, but we'll give it a few more goes and see how it is. The first one, or I don't know if they consider it a run or whatever, but I'm just gonna call it run for the sake of distinguishing which one's which. First run, second run, third run. First and the second one went around the same distances, but this one was way right, this one was way left. This one hit the tree, so it probably would have gone a little bit further, but the tree took off some speed, but it got that full flight, you know, and it's starting to fade out. So definitely, it's gonna fly the furthest on that same angle, just because it's gonna get the turn if it doesn't burn over. And then this one was kind of in the middle. It got a little bit of turn and faded out, but it was just short, because like I said, I just didn't get as good of a throw on it. So I definitely want to get a better throw with it. And now we're working with a little bit of tail left to right wind, but this guy's kind of right in my area. So I'm gonna throw some sidearms out there on a little bit of Hyzer, since I can for sure put it out there and let it fade out to the right. We got a left to right wind, so it's a good wind for it. So we'll go with this one first. See how they fly. Bruh. Oh God. All right, that thing is flippy. I threw it on Hyzer. I guess I pulled it off my line a little bit, but I threw it on Hyzer and it just flipped and turned. So that thing is like legitimate flippy, because I thought I could Hyzer flip it, but no. So we'll try the Cloudbreaker now. Okay, so yeah, even that thing on a little bit of Hyzer with the forehand stands up a little bit and fades out. It's actually a really good forehand disc though, because it flips up but doesn't turn over. So you kind of get that extended distance on it because it has a little bit of flip. I think this one will probably be closer to the first one, but I'm still gonna throw it on the similar angle to see if it actually turns over, or if I could throw it on Hyzer and have it flip up like this Horizon one. But we got a bunch of dogs in the fairway. Try to get it out there, little Hyzer, see if it turns over or just stands up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bomber. It definitely stood up and turned over, so I wouldn't really use it if I needed to get right, because it still wanted to flip up, and maybe if I didn't have this wind, it would turn over a little bit more, but the left to right might be pushing it right at the end. But it flipped up, even turned a little bit, and then faded out unlike the first one. So it's definitely somewhere in between those two discs. Would be a good Hyzer flip to turn, like a distance sidearm disc, and probably for backhand too, but it's not that reliable, overstable disc that you might be looking for. I've decided to slightly relocate. Apparently that field is the place to bring your dog and let him roll around all over the grass end, so nothing wrong with that. So now I'm just gonna throw some flat shots as flat as I can, try to get a consistent release out of all of them. Even if that means the first one's gonna burn over, I just wanna see how they all fly flat and compare to each other in this wind. We have a pretty much straight tailwind from here. So yeah, just gonna throw it straight out there in the field and see how they go. We'll go with the same order, so the original S-line first. Try to throw it flat. I think this thing might burn over, or with this tailwind might glide out a little bit. We will see. Oh. Yeah, nice and flat, a little low, so it definitely didn't give it room to fight out. Maybe I put it on a little bit of Anheuser, but you see that that thing's pretty flippy and definitely wants to hold the line. So it's good for what it's good for, but it's not really like a wind fighter by any means. Horizon is driven and flat. Yeah, pretty much same line, just went dead straight and then faded out. So that thing does like the direct opposite of what the first one does. All right, so what we've seen so far out of these is that the first run turns over, the second one fades out. Let's see which side this one leans towards. I'm hoping the stable side, but we'll see. I like it. It's very neutral. It just went straight for a while, slowly turned, and faded out at the end. So it's a perfect balance between those two. As of now, I definitely think it'll have a slot in my bag. I just like that flight, having something that can turn a little bit, but then fade out. Right now, I kind of just have stuff that's either too flippy or a little too stable, so I like how that's flying so far. All right, we got some beautiful scenery out here. So for that one, the third run actually went the furthest because I got a flat rip. It got the turn of the first one, but the fade of the second one. So it's consistent, a nice balance between the two. I definitely like how it turns and is stable at the end. That's kind of what it feels like. Like I said, it has that a little bit more concave rim and a little bit more of an aggressive dome on top. So seems like it will have a little bit more late stability than this swing is very low profile. So once it gets going, it kind of holds over. And then this one is just, you know, pretty beefy relative to these. Now we have a straight headwind. So we're gonna try to just use that headwind, throw on a little bit of Anheuser and give it some height, see how they go. I think this one's probably gonna burn over again or maybe turn into a roller, but that's what we're here for, is to compare how these discs fly, so that's okay. I'm gonna throw it out there. Yep, turned into a roller. There it goes. Yeah, that thing does not have integrity, especially into the wind. Once it gets going, she ain't coming back. This one could have potential to be the furthest flyer in this wind and on this line, just because it does have the integrity, but it has that dome, so it's gonna want to stay in the air and just fight out of it. So let's try to give her a good rip. I think it went into one of those trees back there. That was definitely a good rip. I got it high on some angle out of the hand, and Jesus, that flew forever. I think it hit a tree before it stopped flying, but that was a bomber. I think in this wind, this might even be too flippy. So this is when I would either pull out that Cloudbreaker if I decide to bag it, or Destroyer. But I mean, we'll see. If this thing stays in the air, then that'll be nice to know it has some integrity, but I don't know that it will. Oh yeah, it's just too steep of a headwind. To see that Horizon Cloudbreaker turn over and hold over as much as it did, once you get the height and the nose down into this wind, it just pushes hard to the right. And the Horizon one just barely had enough integrity to fight out of it. So I kind of figured this one didn't. And it didn't. Like at first it pushed and then it slowly started to turn. But once it got to like this angle, it kind of just dropped straight down. So it definitely won't be like a headwind bomber fighter, but that's not really what I expected it to be. But now it's good to know how they fly into the headwind at least. All right, so the first run and the third run both burned over into the headwind on the high line. It is a pretty steep headwind, so once it kind of got to this point, then it just pretty much got smacked down. The Horizon one, however, did fight out of it. It hit this tree, so I didn't get to see it finish the flight, but it looked like it was gonna pan out, maybe skip back if I had a guess, but it's not really what I think, that's not really what I thought these would be, you know, useful for. They're kind of just flippy distance drivers, and this one has that little bit of consistency to trust that it's gonna fade back. But let's just see how they fly on a power Hyzer with a little bit of height, just to get that consistent flight, but see if they wanna flip over or Hyzer out. I'm curious to see what this one does with some height, so. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the bomber. I threw it on Hyzer with height and it stood up, turned over, and then finally faded out in the end with a decent bit of tailwind. So without tailwind, I bet it would have turned over and held to the right even more. So if you wanna throw something on Hyzer and have it fly maybe a little bit right, then that could be useful because it's gonna get the full flight even on some Hyzer. But this thing is kind of what you're looking for the power Hyzer, getting something in the middle. Yeah, I was able to throw it really hard, flipped up a little bit, and then faded out. They're not super beefy, but you throw it on Hyzer and it's never really gonna turn over. It flipped up a tiny bit. Maybe I threw it a little bit flatter than intended, but I gave it height and it faded out right in the middle, like I said. Let's see what this thing does. We got a little tailwind, see if it turns over a little bit or if it wants to stay on Hyzer. My prediction is it turns a little bit at the top and then fades out in the middle. Yeah, so I definitely threw that one lower, so it turned a little bit more than the Horizon one, but it stood up, just went straight. I wouldn't really say it turned. It stood up, went straight for a while, maybe turned a little bit, but pretty much just went dead straight from the Hyzer flip up and then slowly faded out and landed flat. So it could be really good for those shots that you just need to go straight and then land in the middle and get you a little bit more distance, opposed to the Horizon one that's gonna Hyzer the whole time. This one's gonna push a little bit straighter, which I actually like because you don't have to turn it over. You just put it on Hyzer, goes straight, and then lands flat without having to throw a flat shot, which is a little bit harder than throwing a Hyzer. So I like it. All right, that's it guys. That's the review of Eagle's last Discmania disc, the Cloudbreaker Creator Series, third run, I guess you could say. Final conclusion, this thing is very flippy, consistently flippy. So that's why right now it's in my bag, because I could use it for big turnovers and distance rollers. This thing is not in my bag right now. It's not gonna go in my bag right now just because I have some destroyers that are similar stability and a little bit flatter, so I can use them forehand, backhand. So maybe it'll go in my bag at some point, but right now it will not. And then the new guy, I think will be going in my bag because none of my destroyers have that controlled flip up that this has. I like that I could throw it on Hyzer. It'll flip up, maybe turn a little bit if I throw it hard and flat, but it's just very neutral. So if you put it on some angle, it'll hold it. If you put it on Hyzer, it'll fade out. If you throw it flat, it'll turn a little bit. Forehand, little Hyzer will turn a little bit. You could get to flex or stay on Hyzer but push. So yeah, I like it. It is gonna go in my bag right now. I think I'll use it a lot just with controlled distance shots. I could throw it with a little bit less than full power and still get it to flip, compared to some of my destroyers. I have to throw full power to get to hold a line. So I think it'll be a useful tool in the bag. So that's it. Thanks for watching guys. We'll see you in the next one.